Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Chris and this is another Synched Stories presentation where we will talk about making comics. Okay, so today's adventure will be to produce a detailed row, and that is of course, if you've been following this channel for a while, this is the normal planning stage of the actual drawing. So a detailed row is a document where I decide once and for all. I decide the exact number of panels I'm going to have in one row, because I'm working in rows of the same height and the same total width, as opposed to some comic creators. They have like a varying panel height for different pages and different, so but I don't do that. I have mostly, on most pages, I have the same number of rows and the same height of every row, just like Tintin or Asterix and those guys. And occasionally I may do the double height panel, or do 5 rows on one particular page if like a many frames is if it's a must, or if I think it's appropriate for the action in the panel. Alright, so for me at least, it's about creating rows with on average 3, 4 or 5 panels on each row. So I was counting, in my plan here, I was counting the number of panels I had in the whole first album here, 40 pages, and the average is 3.5 panels a page. That is the UD-11 format. And speaking of that, maybe you haven't seen the planned cover here, the preliminary cover. So this is 987 degrees centigrade, which is episode 1 in season 1 of Unlimited Danger. So the whole series is called Unlimited Danger, and this is season 1. And the star is Barry Riley, an arrogant Starfleet captain who's always ending up in a lot of trouble and a lot of danger and a lot of speed, a lot of intrigues and all that. So so this is the focus of this adventure, Barry Riley. And of course there are evil forces at play here against him, and we will see that later on, but not today, but in another video. Also, the back cover looks like this, and here we see not only one of Barry's spaceships, but also planet Mars, and the whole list of 8 volumes which are featured in season 1, out of which the first one is the one I'm doing now. So 987 degrees centigrade is the first one. We have collision course Earth, the second one. The open source force, the third one. The alien signal, forbidden territory. The power of colloidiana, countdown, Genesis, and finally the final battle, number 8. All right, so that's the sort of the sponsor of this video here is the printed comic album 987 degrees centigrade. Okay, so let's talk about this more now. Let's start doing this. So my usual procedure here is that before I can do this detailed row, I have worked on another document which I'm going to show you now, and this is a rough row. So first I do the rough rows, and here we see all the rough rows on page 12. So this today we're doing page 12. And not only do I do all the 4 rough rows for page 12 before I start my detailed row, but I do all the rough rows in the whole album before I start anything. So everything, each panel has already to be made in a rough sketch. And this is not just a thumbnail. This is a thumbnail plus plot plus exact words and plus approximate panel width. So it's not just an idea, but it's actually the content and the text is already decided. 99%. Of course, I can always override this, the rough layout here with a new idea in this stage, because now it was almost like a year since I saw this last time, or even more. I think actually 18 months since I did this. So what I'm saying is simply that this is not just thumbnail. I mean, many comics producers or comic creators, they talk about, oh, you just do the thumbnails and then you draw, right? Then you ink almost immediately. but that is I think that's perhaps okay if you just intend it as some you know, like amateur. If you okay, I'm just going to do some nice comics. I like doing comics. I'm just okay. Just write something here quickly, and I just draw something quickly, and you know, that's no story, no screenwriting, no like that. We just draw a few thumbnails, and that's good enough, you know, like that. But if you want to do a professional production, you have to actually do it in another manner. You have to attack the whole plot, the whole story, the whole intrigue, the whole thing, and to get a grip on it. Where should I cut? How long should each scene be? How many panels should I have? What is the pace? What is the speed? with which the sort of the comic book proceeds. I mean, are we talking about does every page represent 5 minutes of live action on the screen, or does it in the story, so to speak, or is it like 30 seconds, or is it like 2 minutes, or so you have to sort of plan ahead a lot before you can actually do a whole comic album, so that it ends up being a real adventure and a real interesting, and not too much and not too little, and all of that. All the villains and all the representatives of the villains and all the heroes and all the partners of the heroes and all the of course it's character development, and there's everyone has a certain talking style, and I mean, there's so many dimensions. So I think personally I would say I would fool myself if thinking that you can do a comic album in 6 months, or even in a year. I mean, I don't. I mean, of course you can do a comic book, but not one which is guaranteed to be professional. So what I'm trying to say here is that planning is everything. So here I can just tell you a bit about my experiences with the rough page here, with the rough rows, the 4 rough rows on this page here. I mean, producing all these 40 pages, I think it took me around 4 months on and off to do this, because it may have taken me perhaps 1 month to do 40 pages, but then the editing starts. You have to cut, and you have to toss out your baby, perhaps not with the bathwater, but or whatever the saying goes. But you have to be pretty insensitive to your own sort of how should I say, because sometimes, I mean, it happens to me a lot, or you have some own favorite passage, a favorite scene, some 5 or 10 panels that you think really works nicely. It's just that it doesn't have anything to do with the story. It doesn't move the story forward, and that's of course if you listen to screenwriters like Linda Sager and all these Michael, whatever his name is, Michael Haig. I mean, you have to move the story forward. You have to. It has to be relevant, not just some funny episode that has nothing to do with the main action. Unless, of course, it has the quality of adding to it, and but it's hard to be funny and being serious at the same time. I think that's my own observation. But anyway, so there's a lot of work if you want to be professional. And then when you are sure that you have 40 pages of solid action, you have your 600 panels in the right sequence, then you can start actually drawing and actually producing the detailed rows. So we can say what the difference between these two here is, that in the detail row to the right here, I will now finalize the exact panel width. Here I have, on the left here, I have a little leeway, or there's something, there is something here that I can sort of, I can shuffle around the gutters here a little bit. So I haven't really decided here exactly if I should take this, relatively speaking, exactly here, or I should move the gutter 2 millimeters to the right, or 5 millimeters to the left, or anything like that. So it's on the detail row I have to do that. I have to once and for all decide what that is. Depending, of course, if I now still like this original design, or and if I want to edit the text slam here and do something else, perhaps that takes more space and like that. So, but here in the detail row, I decide exactly how big the panel should be, and this is no change after this. Also, I decide exactly what text it is, and there will be no change at all after that either. And I also decide now how many lines of text and the exact words and expressions I'm going to use. This has to be finalized before I actually draw it on my paper, or I'm hand lettering it, right, with the ink, right? So, and the balloon, the exact size of the balloon, and that is done here in the detail row. So the only thing I'm leaving a little vague on this detail row is the sketch of the action inside. So I'm leaving this basically as I did it on the rough page, because I really want to do that on paper. I want to do the actual drawing on paper, and I don't want to redraw it with my Wacom board, pen here that I'm using right now. I don't want to draw my first, I don't want to redo these sketches inside Photoshop. I don't enjoy that process. It's all right for me to use the Wacom board here, the Wacom pen and like that, to edit something that I already drew on paper. So that's I like that. That's no problem. But sitting with this pen on this kind of aluminium surface Wacom tablet is not like a real joy for me. So I use my light box or my light table instead to draw everything. And of course I love hand lettering also, and drawing all the panel frames and all the balloons and like that. I also love that, so that's why I'm doing that. So all right, so now let's get going. So well, my usual process is then that we start just copying the whole row. We copy the whole row, and today we're doing the B, the number 2, the row 2, row B as I call them. So on every page I have A and B and C and D. But now we're doing the B here. Okay, and now I'm just on the left hand side here, I'm just clicking on the previous resized row I had on some other page. This is my template page. I'm just using an old detailed row document in which I'm replacing all the layers that I need. So, and that way I can simply reuse all the typed text, so I can always have a nicely documented Photoshop document. So I'm just pasting now, and then I'm just copying the text from the previous layer and resize, and then I name it 12B. So this is okay, so this is from a rough page, I should say here. Rough page in a A4 format. So I'm using A4, European style, US letter kind of equivalent, and so I'm using, so I have my resized row there, which I sketch, and I'm pressing V on the keyboard to get to the move tool, and then I move it with my pen here, or you can use your mouse also. And then I'm just dragging the corner here and keeping while holding the shift key down, so I get the proportional enlargement of the whole row. And what I'm doing now is that you see here the problem when I'm sketching quickly on my rough pages to the left here, that is sort of I don't always get the exact proportions right. I'm just taking my A4 paper and sort of sketching on with my eyes, so to speak, to quickly get something that is reasonably proportional. And then when I when I then paste this and try to enlarge it, it never really fits the red rectangle here in the background, which is the exact format I want. But that doesn't matter, because what I'm interested in is only the width. So I'm fitting everything regardless of whether it's not as tall as the red width, or or higher than the red width. I don't care, as long as I'm sort of as long as the width is synced or synchronized, then I'm happy. And then the height I can always adjust later on. So now here, if I do enter, I commit the size change here, then we can quickly just enable these gutters here that are already made, and then we just select the first gutter, press V for move tool, and then I can I should, and then while holding shift, so I keep the gutter in the same vertical position like that. So I can sort of, as my first approximation where the gutters are going to be, is that I'm simply putting them over the frames of the figures or the panels behind here from my rough row. Alright, so now we have preliminary booked them. Okay, but now we want to hide it for now, so we'll get back to those later on. Another thing we want to do is that I want to make sure that the alignment between the gutters is acceptable, and by that I mean that I do not want that we should have the gutters intersected. So it should not be like Main Street that sort of continues from the north to the south here, but instead there should always be some kind of crossing. So if I just do, let me see if I can do this. Let's just create a new layer just to show you what I mean, and then we'll just fill that with white, and then so if we have, and let's just make that 50% shine through, and let's see, we have a, let's make that red here. Okay, then we take the brush here, make it a little bigger. So what I always want is that my panels, they must always be like that. Either this way, or they could go like this also. Something like that. Or they could go well, they could be bigger space. So it could be like that. So we would have then but the idea is that it should never look like, it should never go like this down here, straight down. No, never straight down. There should always be like it should be like a puzzle, jigsaw puzzle where the frames are nicely overlapped, so to speak. So in order to really make sure that this arrangement is, as you can see, I have planned it in the background here. But sometimes when you do this adjustment, I actually did this just a few months ago. When I made the transition from the rough page or the rough row to the detail row, I forgot to double check that. So because when you're working on if you're just working on one row, perhaps you're doing one detail row one day, and then 2 days later you're doing detail row B, and 5 days later you do detail row C, and then in between you don't remember exactly how big the surrounding. So if I'm here at B and only view this, I don't know what was the position of row A's gutters, because that's the most. So in order to do that, I'm nowadays having this previous row's gutters, right? So I'm going to show you these, and now these are not row A of page 12, but these are row A from some other page. So these, we will not use these, but the idea is that as soon as I'm sort of visualizing these or making these visible now, the new ones, on relative to I'll show like that is better. So this is for these all these gutters are for the current row, detail row B. But this folder here is for row A, and I clearly say this also in my description in each layer here. Gutter 1 from row A, gutter 2 from row A, gutter 3 from row A. So what I want to do now is simply to import these from the actual 12, row 12A, page 12, row A. So I'm all right. So I'm selecting this first row here, or first layer here, and I'm going to paste something here from another document. So now I'm going into, I will go into my old document, which is detail row A for page 12, which I have here in another window, which you can see, but I'm double clicking on that document now, and this is the document we produced in another video a few days ago. So you can see that also. If you're interested in that, there's another video on that. Alright, so what to do then, and you can see here in an A document, in a row A document, I only have used these gutters because there is no previous row above row A. So in row A I don't have to worry about gutters intersecting or not up here, because there are none. This is the top of the page here. in my printed comic book. Alright, so now I take, so these are the 4 gutters then. So I take all of these, and then I take my quick command here for duplicate layers, and then I duplicate them to another destination, not to itself, but to the detail row B. And I press OK here. And now let's check if they actually came there. Okay, so we have the new ones there. Okay, good. And now I just close the old one, or the row A. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to just rename them. So the new ones are on top here, and I just paste each of the old description names here, and then I delete the template ones down there. Okay, so now we have the real ones, and since they are real ones, they always cover the whole page, but I don't want that. I want to move them up, so I select all of them, shift down, and I select, so I select, shift down, select. So I take all of them, and then I press V to move. I do Control minus because these are long, or should I say tall, and then I just drag the middle handle up to approximately here, and then I can do this also, perhaps more visible, and then I press enter to commit the change. So now we have Control plus here to see everything, and now you can see that as expected, if we go back to the rough page here, as expected, here it is. So row A, row B, and as expected, these are pretty close together. So when I design this on my A4 page, sitting at a cafe or something, I made a mistake. I should have thought about that already at that point, but I didn't see it. So these are much too close. So the rule I'm having, my personal rule, you can follow that or not, but if we, how should I draw this? I'm just do another layer here. And then I'll just fill it with white and not. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that, oh, whoops. Okay, let's do this quickly here. So let's say we have a big, let's say the bigger scale now. I'm drawing it in a bigger scale. Okay, let's say we have a panel that looks like this. and now let's erase a little so we can get. And we're interested in the what kind of let's do a little bit. Something like that. And then we just flip it around there so we can. So what I'm saying here is this, that I'm saying that the distance from here to here, okay, I'm saying that there is a distance here that is determined by it's determined by so let's see. Okay, now I drew it. Okay, but let's just quickly fix this. Just do like that quickly. And we'll do that. Yeah. Okay, so here we are. So what I'm saying here is that, and of course the panel, the gutter width here should be equal in both cases. So let's do that just to, we should have a consistent panel width. So let's just, this is just sketching here for you guys. So my idea here is that, which I'm actually implementing in my own production here, is that this distance marked in red is the distance of a gutter, approximately. So I'm saying that this is the minimal distance. This is the minimal distance. The distance here that should be visible. So if you what we want to avoid is, of course, everything. So we don't want this this here, this line here should not be over here, or over here, or over here, or over here. But the earliest point, if we just quickly do this here, so the earliest point it can be is over here as well, something here. Oh, something like here. So this is so we avoid all the frames should not end here, should not end here, should not end here, should not end here, should for the row under here. So having once decided that this is the panel arrangement for the first row, then we cannot be in this neighborhood here. So this crossing is how to say, forbidden territory, right? So that's just my, so one gutter at the very least. I think I actually prefer 1.5 gutter as the minimum, but if you must, then all right, one gutter. And that makes a more pleasing layout, I think. That's my personal. All right, so let's just hide that one, and we'll just continue now with row B. But I thought that was a very important part of good page planning. You have to plan our pages, and by planning your pages we can arrive at a more professional looking result. Okay, so alright, so we have done that. We have resized our row. We now know where our gutters cannot be. So gutter 1 here cannot be where it is now. So that we have to change. So we can then decide, okay, we want it at least one gutter to the left somewhere here, or we can decide to put it one gutter to the right somewhere here, 1.5 perhaps, something like that. So depending on each situation, we may have to rearrange the whole row or not, depending on whether the gutters are have already been put at the right in a convenient spot, or whether they are, in this case, they are interfering with what we were pre-planning in our rough row. Okay, so that we can think about, and but what we can see here already, which is very important, is that in this first panel to the left here, we do see that there is absolutely no text other than the sound effect smash, right? While here in panel 2 there is 4 rows of 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 words, plus some hyphens also, or dashes. So I think it's safe to say that the most, at this stage, a preliminary decision here is that we probably would have to have the gutter here. Okay, so we will try to determine what we want to do after we have started to paste the pictures and starting with the text. So let's keep this open for now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use this resized row as the an illustration sort of database, and I'm just going to copy the main picture and put it into each panel. So I'm replacing the old pictures here, and I'm renaming it to smash here, simply smash the first one. Then I go back to the resized row, and I'm just copying the ASA director here, and I'm using shift here to add to the selection, using the marquee tool and copying, and I'm going down to panel 2, removing, deleting the fingers layer and replacing it with ASA director. And then we go back to the resized row and select at the file cabinet kind of picture, at the file cabinet, or the director's back, we can call it director's back. Okay, and we delete the old, and then we just another slam. Okay, another slam here. Okay. Another slam, pasting it. Slam. And then okay, so now we can hide the resized row, and now we should see all the pictures as we do here. So this seems to be working, and now we go back to the resized row a last time, and then we just copy all the text like that, and I'll just remove, should remove it, okay, pressing Alt, keeping Alt down while selecting makes the selection less. So I'm just trying to just get the text, and now I'm copying it and I'm pasting it in old balloon texts folder. So old balloon texts as one row, right? I'm just pasting that and deleting the old template one, and then I'm just V on the keyboard for move tool and shift and up. So I have my text up here like that. Good, and now I can hide the resized row. So now we have repositioned the content of the resized row to different parts of the detailed row to help us with the actual composition. Okay, so now that is done, and so now we're going to start doing the text. And the most important thing here is that we need to test whether or not the text in panel 2, panel B2, is actually fitting in or not. So we want to immediately go to balloon 2 or panel 2 and the balloon templates here. But now we see that they are a 2-line template. The template document for this detail row didn't contain the 4-line text that we need. Or perhaps we actually don't know if it's 4 lines is the best one. Maybe 3-line would be better. But I think we go with 4 lines for now to see if it works. So what I'm going to do now here in panel 2 is I'm going to delete all these guys here, these 4. So select, shift down, select, and I'm now deleting all these layers. My short command here. And now we are going to use new ones here. So balloon guides, we want a 4-line balloon text coverage. And we want a 4-line outline. And the tail, do we have a tail? Yes, we have a medium tail down there already. So okay, so now I'm just keeping Alt key down and I'm, oh whoops, so 4-line balloon text coverage, and now I'm keeping Control down on my Windows keyboard here and clicking once there to select it. So these 2 we want, and now I'm not keeping Control down, and now I'm pressing down Alt key to make a duplicate. I'm just dragging everything down like that, and I want down to 2, panel 2 down here, and I'm releasing it now. So now I have a copy of this, but I don't want the name copy in here because it's longer and confusing. Alright, so now we have a 4-line balloon text coverage that looks like this. But this is only for panel 2, so we have to select it with V and the move tool if we can get lucky to sometimes. But as you see here, I don't get any handles. So although I have show transform controls up here selected, it still doesn't show. Why? Because I have my layer locked. So I have to unlock my layer, and I do this with my short command key, so you don't see me actually going up here and clicking on this. Otherwise you could do that as well, but there is a benefit of using short commands in general, so quicker. So alright, so now they are unlocked, and so now you get the handles, and now we just I'm dragging the middle one to the middle of the gutter, and then the other middle one to the other gutter, because we are in panel 2, so it's we're using a 4-line balloon text coverage, but only in balloon 2. And the same goes for, or equivalent, it's for panel 2, so we have to reposition it to be inside panel 2 for easy access later on, because if we have many balloon outlines and many balloon text coverages, we can get confused if they are in the wrong location. So it's a good thing to always quickly drag them into the into the neighborhood of the right panel. Okay, so now that's done. All right, and so now we only want the lines themselves. So let's make the lines for panel 2 then. So let's zoom in here on panel 2 and see if we can get everything. So let's try, so pressing T on the keyboard to get the text tools, and of course I've already selected this whole document is a template, so I know that I'm using Myriad Pro, regular, 16 points, on and on, like all these details of the right width and the right kerning and the right everything. Alright, and now we just type in the and if you have watched some other video where I do this, you know that I use 2 spaces in between each word to simulate what I will be doing in my hand lettering later on. Okay, the most competent astrogeologist we have ever heard of. And then I'm using a space in between the last word of the sentence and the exclamation mark. And I think that looks pretty good in terms of how the text, how each of these 4 lines are interrelated. I mean, they are pretty much equal size, but still we may ask the question, is really this the optimal, because we have this situation here that if we were to have the word have there, then we would have a smaller 4th line than the 3rd line, and mostly that is what I think most layout gurus would say it's preferable, that you get, I mean for a 3-liner at least. If our 3 lines were starting there, 1, 2, 3, if these were the 3 lines, then this would be a good arrangement. Because the problem, but the situation is that the 4th line is larger than the 3rd line. So this line is smaller than the last line, which looks pretty, maybe not perfect. But since, we can say like this, but since the 2nd line is equally wide, then it may be preferable that we have an arrangement like this. So even though, so I'm expressing this in another way, even though we have we can say the longest line is the 4th line, and no typographer worth his name would ever accept it. Unless perhaps another line were equally big higher up. So maybe we can say like that. Maybe we can make the, so so this is not just for fun or for some, I'm just showing you that, or trying to show you what kind of reasoning goes behind the scenes here. So this is not just to scribble down something quickly here, but to actually make it nice, to try to make the best of the situation. So I think we will actually go with this. I think it's not for the eye. I think it's acceptable that we have these lines, lines 2 and line 4 equally big. I think we'll go with that. All right. For now, to see if it works, okay? And then we can always do something else later on. Okay, so we have the outline right, and now I'm duplicating that, Alt and dragging to get the copy, which I'm now immediately doing a horizontal flip with my short command here, and then I'm shift dragging this one over, because the idea is simply here that if we zoom in here, I'm leaving this white space here, and the green, this green line here, the fainter of them. This is the outline of the balloon, but this is just a marker here for the, I shouldn't call it gutter, but should call it a white frame inside the balloon, so that the text doesn't go out to the balloon outline, but stays at a safe distance, so it gets neat and tidy. All right, so we go back here and now do the same here so now we just rename the layer also, so it gets easier to see if I need to return to this document ever again, so I know what I'm doing. And this is also another hallmark of professionalism, that you actually do document your documents and not just create 50 layers without name, just because it's for fun, or I mean, you may do whatever you like, but the point with professionalism is that there's a large component called editing and revising and optimizing, and so the idea is that we don't just draw a panel once, but we refine it and retouch it and we go back to it and we adjust the colors, we adjust the lines, we adjust so many aspects. So if we have everything nicely named, then everything becomes so much simpler. And it's not just about naming either. It's about consistency. So I mean, you could name the same thing in 1,000 different ways, but the good thing is that if you decide once and for all that I call this a detailed row, you decide that, then whenever I say detailed row, I always mean the detailed row. It's not that I say, oh, it's a super row, or it's my blue rows, or my apple row. No, it's my detail row. So when I'm talking about the balloon outline, I'm always referring to something like this, the dark green line here, and the balloon outline, if we make it solo here in Photoshop, this is the left one, and then you have the right one here. It looks like this. So this is the balloon outline. And now, of course, I have balloon outlines working inside the detail row document, but then I have another balloon outline working in the finished panel, where my final drawings and my final coloring and my final everything is produced. So I have, but it's still a balloon outline. It's so that's why there is this typing qualification here, DR, detailed row balloon outline. So it's not an FP, finished panel balloon outline, but a detailed row balloon outline. So by being very careful with your you have to invent things to actually make this work. I mean, there are so many aspects of comic production that you need to master, and you need to find your workflow, your ideas, your way of approaching things. And consistency is a big part of that. So so by naming things and naming them consistently, you can quickly see what's happening inside this document. So you can the same folder arrangement, the same names, everything. So I don't reinvent the wheel every time I make a new document. Okay, good. All right, so now we have. So the only thing left now for about the text is we haven't actually positioned it exactly right, but let's just do that. So I usually just for this is not a big deal in this stage, but still. So I'm using shift and left arrow now to just, okay, maybe not shift, I'm just the arrow. 1, 2, 3. 3, pixels to the left there. And still this is good enough, so we have the text. So now we can just fine adjust the text itself on the balloon text line, just so the T is positioned there. And so it actually turns out that the second line is a few pixels wider than the fourth line, so I think we're good. Alright, and now the question is here for the right outline here. Where should we place the... I mean, are we talking about... Should we take this line of the T? Or should we use the stroke, the vertical stroke of the T as the... But I think we'll just do like that, something like that. All right, so that's done, and now we just want a midsection here also, so I'm just copying. Oh, we'll always copy this one here, a part of that one, copying, paste, so we get a midsection with a straight horizontal line, and then I can just drag this out with the mouse here, or with the pen, because ultimately I'm going to put this document on a light box, and then I'm going to trace the balloon over the green line. So I need to have a thick green line so I can ink it nicely, to see it nicely, not some hazy grayish line, but a thick line that's almost black. Good, so now that's done, and now we just make the tail visible wherever it is. Okay, here it is. I'm just grabbing it, V for the move tool, and then I'm like that, and then H for the hand, and something like that. But one consideration we could make is I don't like the tail with this angle, so I prefer the angle less steep, so something like this I like better. So I'm instead going to do that angle, and then I'm going to put this closer here. Okay, something like that. Now, but maybe I'm going to actually move him also, so let's, because we have the golden, if we think of the balloon itself, its dimensions, and if we sort of divide it in 3 or something, so 1/3 is here and 1/3 is there, then if we put it something like that, that would be the golden ratio, something like that. 3/8 I think it is. Okay, so then we move the head of the ASA director something like that, and not too close to the bubble, and I'm using shift now, and I'm making them a little smaller because we don't want them too big. Something like, oh whoops, no, maybe there. And you can see here also that he is offset from the center also by, so if we think about him as like the middle of him goes something like that, and that would be also the golden ratio here, something like the 1/3 or one or close to that. So I think we're good here. And of course this positioning of him facing the left is of course his across from Barry, and Barry is looking the other way around, right? So Barry is looking to the right, and that is for the cinematic rule. So we're keeping the 180 degree rule here, so that they are talking to each other, right? Okay, so that works, I think. And the exact position also within the frame of the director can also, I mean, we can adjust this later on also. Both the scale and the position we can but it's very, very good to test out already on this stage that it might actually work. So we have a game plan, we know what we're doing, we know what kind of space we have available. So okay, and we should just verify now that the panel, that the gutters really are right. So let's just remove the old balloon text, and we do have, yes, we do have one gutter there. We have one gutter's distance there, so that would work. What I see now here, we have two pictures that are the same, so something happened there, so I have to go back to the resized row and get the right picture. So this was the right picture here with the slam here, but which we didn't succeed in. So I'm copying it, and we are going down to panel 4, and we just copy the text and paste it and remove the old one, and now we will check whether or not we actually made it. Now it's good. Okay, so we have to so we have to do number 2 and 3. Oh, sorry, number 3 and 4. So direct us back is the next one, but the question was about whether the gutter was all right or not. And the gutter is all right now, here. So we could try that. So we have the texts here. And of course we can just drag them down also. Let's do that, just so we don't have to. We just drag this down here now. Since we have so much text up here, we drag them down for now at least. Okay, so we see that there is a gutter width difference there. Good. So go back to panel 3. And let's enter some text. And then the question is, according to the plan on the rough page, my intent was originally to have this as two lines. But what I have here is only a 3-liner, and we could perhaps, and as if that wasn't we could try it to see if a 3-liner would be better, but the problem here is, okay, here it is, that since our picture here, our illustration or drawing here is about a tall file cabinet. It's a tall file cabinet, and we want to show the reader that it is a tall file cabinet, that he's inside there trying to do something. So if we have 3 lines, then we will have less space to make that file cabinet higher. So the question is, how high could it be? So I think a good rule here is that but on the other hand, the file cabinet is not higher than him. So the ASA director will not be higher than the file cabinet, although the file cabinet may perhaps reach him to the shoulder or something like that. And we don't want him too big either. So I think it's reasonable to, if we, in terms of scale, if we go by his head in panel 2 here as some kind of marker, we can do like this. We can actually try with a 3-liner text if we resize the director's back picture here, so that he is standing like that with the legs. We're cutting the legs there to the frame, the bottom frame there of the panel, and then the scale will be pretty good. And then he will be talking to the left, because we may want to have a window here or something to the right. Yes, or a painting or something like that. Okay, I think that's a good plan. All right, so let's type and as if Now I'm not using all caps here as I did in my proposal up here, or the rough pages, but I am using the more low-key stress implied by the italics here. So just so that you don't get confused to think that I'm, what is he doing? What is he doing? No, there's a method to the madness, even though it may not always be easy to see it. Alright, and then we should just have the 3 dots there instead. So T on the keyboard, text, and then of course we always do enter on the keyboard whenever we are inside the text area. This is the escape, so otherwise you can't escape. So if I want to switch to the V tool now, and then I press V on the keyboard, I just get a V character inside the text area here, and that's not what we want. So you always commit the text changes with an enter, and then you are free to do a V on the keyboard now instead, and there you go. So that's convenient, especially if you are on a on a tabletop, like a big computer at your desk. But some laptops, they don't have it, and my Lenovo doesn't have it, for instance. So then you are but then you may do other things instead. But otherwise, if you're sitting at a regular computer at your desk, then enter will take you out of the text editing mode. Okay, so then we have this text done, and now we just highlight the text coverage here, and that looks good. We just do a unlock here of that, and we drag it out a little bit, and then drag it in a little bit there on this side as well, and then we commit it, and we can lock it again. And the outline, we just make it visible here, and we left, there it is. And we are going to align it to the left, and I think I usually do this at 100% to really see where the red line disappears. So there it is. Okay, and we have the balloon lines, and I go back to that, and in the case of the dots or the periods here, they are have a very small graphic value, so the eye doesn't really count them as much as a character. So you can easily do, instead of keeping you on the safe side inside the, instead of doing this, you can easily do, like, you center it on the line if you want, especially if the other lines are inside already. But if either of line 2 or 3 were bigger, of course, then you couldn't do that. But then you had to go by by those lines instead, but here we can safely do something like that. And now, and then we just, as we did before, oh, okay, I already did it, okay, in my previous, okay, we already have a right one, and we already have a center here. Okay, that's good. Smashing, and the center one is just, yeah, it's well inside those lines. Okay, and we only add the tail now, and we may want to make it a little less big here. And we are hopefully pointing to the approximate location of his mouth here. So I think we'll leave that, and in the worst case scenario, if this balloon, if I draw this balloon on the light box with my ink, if I ink it like this as it is now, I still can adjust everything. If for some reason, perhaps if I decide as a final decision when I'm actually drawing him that he actually ends up here instead, or I'm making him a little smaller, and then I may have to adjust the tail according to that, but even that I can do in Photoshop later on. It's just more editing. It's just there's, so everything is possible, of course, to change in the last stage, but it becomes more time consuming. That's just the whole thing. All right, so okay, and then so I think so number 2 and number 3 really work well. And I think for now at least I'm not going to do anything for about panel 4 or panel 1, because these are going to work well anyway. The slam has to be approximately there, and there's only one thing to illustrate here. It's he's grabbing the handle and he's pushing it in as hard as possible, so it slams the whole cabinet. Badam, slam, blam. Okay, and in this case it's also he smashes the report on the desk, onto the desk, and the sound effect is smash, and the smash must be here somewhere. But here we have lots of space. We can place that splash later on when we're actually mounting the smash. But smash is not, I draw that of course as a separate drawing, and it becomes a separate layer later on when after I'm scanning it so I can place it anywhere. But it have to be there somewhere, and there is the desk, and there's his hand and his arm. He's smashing, and then there's another document already, another report lying there already, and so I think that will work well. Perhaps it's just the angle we can adjust, but not. I'm not doing that now. I'm just. The hardest part is the text and getting everything inside there, and then the rest we can do later on. Because I'm not, as I said, I'm not so thrilled at starting to draw and sketch again now, since I'm sketching everything already. I will do that on the light box. Alright, so now I have a treat here, and the treat is simply that just before I started this video, I pasted another version of it's not actually a rough page, because it's a real illustration, which was one of the first. Page 12 was like a test page for me when I started to assemble like a typical page. How should I color it? How big should it be? Which size of document should I have? How much? Which resolution should I have? All these questions. So I played around with that, and I printed it out a million times, and and I changed the lettering size, and I changed my pen size and my thickness, and I changed and did it again, and on and on and on and on. It took many months just to arrive at something which was acceptable. Because the whole, one of the big problems, I think, is the coloring. Where should I do the coloring? Should I color it on the page, or should I? And what about the lettering? Which typeface should I use, or what should I use? A font in the computer, or should I do it by hand? Should I do it by hand on paper, or should I do it by hand with a Wacom or my Cintiq? Or, well, I don't have a Cintiq, but I mean, I was just thinking that if you have one, I mean, that may be one solution or one possibility. But I decided I wanted to do the old school way, old style of doing everything on paper first, and then I may perhaps edit any given artwork inside Photoshop. That's one thing, but the whole feeling, I wanted to have it on paper. All right, so we are here. So I'm going to actually show you this, what I did, because I don't remember how I designed it, but here you can see I actually designed the gutters completely different. But at that time I didn't think so much about the intersection between the gutters on the different rows, so I didn't have that kind of experience as I have now of sort of designing many rows and many pages like that. So here they are. So here's my first in the good old time when I was hand lettering with all capitals, right? But this, of course, the more American style of doing things, and I don't actually like it anymore. I thought it was okay, but in the beginning, but then I acquired a a more, I shouldn't say refined taste, but I was struck by how hard it was to read it, so I changed it. So I adopted something more like Tintin style of hand lettering instead. But even that, of course, is not the exact same as Tintin, because I'm using a different typeface, and I'm not using italics the same way he does, because he's using italics for almost all text, all the normal text. So Hergé is using like the italics for everything here except heard of. He may use caps on that one, or but otherwise he's almost always using italics. And I don't like italics for everything. I think italics is hard to read also. So italics should have so what I did was I replaced the bold heard of with italics, and everything else is just Roman normal regular text, small letters, just as I have up here. But the italics here instead of that, and as if that wasn't enough. Of course, I do this sometimes also if he's sort of like half screaming. But I don't envision him half screaming right here. So he's just saying, and as if that wasn't enough. He's not going. Instead, he's smashing the papers on the table, and he's smashing this, but he's not the screamy type. That not, at least not yet, not in this panel. He's still in conversation mood, so to speak. Although he is doing he starts his scolding process. All right. So anyway, so that's how I. So in this example here is of course a result of my previous planning. But I drew this in A2 format. That's what I think. I drew it in A2 format, and the texting was made with some special template, not in A2 format, but with something I don't remember, something in between A2 and A3 or something on it. So I didn't draw this on the A2, but I draw this separately, as I always do. So in any case, the head is too big here, and it's questionable whether or this should be like an angle here or not. That is questionable, and this shot here, I'm not so sure that this works, because the file cabinet isn't really, well, I have to think about that. And I think also in panel 3 here, the file cabinet is a little bit too high. So the file cabinet should be a little lower, but the problem is that if the file cabinet is too low, then this view, like from his back, then the file cabinet would actually almost disappear in his shoulders there, so you wouldn't see it so much. So perhaps the best view actually is like a profile view of him and the file cabinet. Just seeing his hands or something. But I have to think about that. I may have to redo it later, but for now I think we can go with this. Alright, so then we are basically finished. I'm just going to show us this one last time here, and we are going to export. I'm going to just rename the document name. I'm clicking on document name and date. We are using the T on the keyboard for text tool, and we're entering 12, and today's date is Sunday the 5th of August. August 2019. Okay, that looks good. And we do enter to commit and save. And now we should just re-show the gutters again. And we should also, let's see, we just hide these again to make the list shorter. And we have the gutters, and we want cropping rects. So we're going to do 2 savings of this document. One made for printing the whole row, and one made for the enlarged scale, so that we can make the 4 sheets of A4 for each and one of the panels, so we can actually draw on them. Because it's nice to have this document here where we sort of have all the panels assembled on one row, and we can have this as a reference while we're drawing, and then we can so we see all the panels, and then we have each panel a little larger scale, so we can actually start drawing the frame and the balloon and all that. Okay, so now we're doing that, and then we're saving it. Save for web with Control-Shift-Alt-S. Enter. And save. Now I get a dialog box here on the other monitor, and we will have to click around here a little bit to get into the right folders. And I have a folder called UD-11 pages here, and I'm choosing page 12. And I'm choosing my detail rows folder and row B. And now I'm just clicking on the old, oh, I can bring it in here. I'm just clicking on the old one now here. My sort of template that I already did, and I'm just, which then activates, of course, the text there, and then I just say save, and then I replace it, and now I have the new one. like that, and then I do the other document, the other PNG. I'm using another cropping rectangle here for this text, and I'm doing the same thing, Control Shift Alt S, and enter. And we do save, and I just choose the other one. It's already named for the panels, and I replace it. Okay, so that's it. And now the last step here is simply to remind everyone here that this is the project, and this is the preliminary final cover, the front cover for 987 degrees centigrade. The fantastic adventures of Barry Riley and his friends, with packed with action and packed with intrigue, packed with confrontation and love and hate and all that, and of course in a traditional science fiction action thriller style. And as I said before, there are 7 more volumes in the flow here, so this is just the number 1. Alright, so I hope you enjoy this video, and I'm hoping that we meet again here in another video. Have a good day. Bye bye.